So apologies that we've missed the last couple of days of Take Heart, but we're back on track now, and we're going to be looking at the same passage that I've looked at a couple of times for the third and final time. It's this passage from Matthew chapter 6, where Jesus talks about worry, and there's just so much in it. And this is a time where we're all worried, or many of us are anyway, I am, that it's so good to come back to it again. So the verses I want to focus on this time is what Jesus says. You might remember, if you've been listening along, that he says, why are you chasing after clothes? Why are you stressing about what you're going to eat? The pagans run after these things. And he says this in verse 32, "For the pagans run after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." A few years ago at our summer festivals, the Pokemon Go app had just come out. Might be you don't know what Pokemon are, but it was basically this app that sent people chasing all over the place into fields and kind of like up trees, and they end up inside other people's tents trying to catch these Pokemon. And I remember it because the app had just been released and everyone was going nuts at Soul Survivor for the first couple of days, doing all these random things, trying to catch Pokemon. And then there was the point at which it died down, and I couldn't work out what's happened here until I went into a cafe one afternoon and saw that they'd all paired up with each other, and Jack had met Lucy, and so they were no longer interested in finding Charizard because they found something better. And in a way, that it's kind of a picture of something called the expulsive power of a greater affection. And what that means is, as far as I understand it, that you can be really into something and it can kind of like grab your heart and obsess you for a while, and then you find something so much better that you forget within like even sometimes minutes about how you could, you just forget about the first thing because you've got something incredible. And when we become Christians, that's a part of the adventure that we go on, this expulsive power of a greater affection, this journey into discovering the love of God. That means the love of the world and the things around us cease to have maybe the grip that they had on our attention before. And when Jesus is talking about seeking first the kingdom of heaven here, and he puts it in the context of worry, I think one of the things he's getting at is just that we are if we give our attention to our fears and our worries, they end up having a control over us and they drive the agenda of our lives. But when we put our attention, we fix our hearts and we fix our minds on seeking the kingdom, then the worries that we so often battle with, it's not that they disappear entirely, but they cease to have that controlling, driving force in our lives. And how you seek first the kingdom is, I think, a little bit. Well, I love the way that Mike puts it. So I've often heard him speak about a verse from Ephesians where it talks about how God has prepared good works in advance for us to do. The way that Mike's talked about that is he said he imagines it like he gets into bed at night and the Father sends out these angels to kind of prepare good works the next day for him to do, a bit like you hide chocolates at Easter in the garden. And then Mike wakes up the next morning and says, "Good morning, Father. I know you've been out preparing good works for me to do today. I'm going to go on a hunt and I'm going to see if I can find these good works." And he might meet someone who's looking a bit down and think, "Is this one of those good works, Father? Is this what you've prepared in advance for me to do?" And someone might pop into his head, "Is that someone, Lord, that you want me to get in touch with? Is that another good work that you've prepared for me to do today?" And I think that's a great way of thinking about how we seek first the kingdom, that we would wake up in the morning and we would say, recognizing life is so different now and we're not going to be able to go to people's houses and stuff like that, touch base with them in those kind of ways, but still to be able to wake up in the morning and say, "Father, I've got all my fear and I've got all my anxiety, but I want to put your kingdom first. Who do you want me to bless today? Are there good works? I know there are that you've prepared in advance for me to do. Can you show them to me that we might do that together?" And it's not about distracting ourselves away in an unhealthy way from the things that we're afraid of. We want to pray our fears and we want to be honest about those, but it is a chance for adventure with God. And it's a way of allowing Jesus, not fear, to set the agenda of the day. And someone once said that the goal of life should never be to seek happiness, because those who try and do that, they never get it. If you get happiness, it's this elusive thing. You can have it for about 15 minutes, it slips out of your fingers. If that's your aim, if that's what you're aiming at, a better thing to do, they said, is to aim for aliveness. and to pursue living for something bigger than yourself. And Jesus says something that I think is much more profound, but it's kind of got a similar sentiment to it when he says, whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will find it. And in the same way, I think if our goal is just to be worry-free, we'll probably miss it. And what I've been trying to speak to myself recently, I've done it better some days and badly other days, is to say, rather than, oh, I want today to be empty of worry, a better way of approaching it is to say, I want today to be full of Jesus. I just want this day to be full of Jesus, full of Jesus's kingdom. And when we do that, what we find is the fear begins to take a back seat.